Hey everyone, Soup's here. It's been a long time coming, but we are finally back. Finally, to cover some actual Voxelblade stuff. So, once again, doing this in one take without a script. But, I'm gonna pull an Agamatsu here and do all this in MS Paint. MS Paint! That's way too far out. MS Paint! Okay. The joke's over. Anyway, so what we're going to try to do is we are going to try to go over what's new. So, first and foremost, there is a lot, and I do mean a lot of brand new stuff that's been implemented into Voxelblade since the Classic Edition, and the demo for the re-release, and the actual re-release. So, what that ends up consisting of is, well, let's cover the basics. So first of all, there are a lot of damage types. So we have physical, which is just your standard issue greatswords, katanas, nothing special, no real stats effects besides like bleed. So basically, when you think of physical, you're gonna think of physical boost. It's gonna be your typical comically large sword. There's nothing special going for it. It's just gonna be it's a knife. It's your everyday typical knife. There's not gonna be a whole lot to it. It's a sword. No, it's a terribly drawn sword. Anyway, so with that in mind, so physical is overall going to be one of the most common damage types because there's actually an entire blade tree that's dedicated to it. So so in the description of this video, I am going to have a link to one of the best Trello information sources for Voxelblade, and I highly suggest that you check it out on your own time once this video is over. And I also recommend making sure that you subscribe because I will be trying to post more information regarding Voxelblade, considering its recent release and whatnot. And I also want to try to get back into making content, but that's obviously completely optional. So I digress. Other damage types. Magic. There's a lot of stuff that are going into magic. So magic has several different elements. But we're going to start with pure magic. Pure magic is focused on a whole lot of DPS, like a whole lot of DPS, ranged attacks. DPS, ranged attacks. You'll see lots of stuff regarding summoning, and explosions, energy manipulation in general. So basically, magic is going to be one of your most versatile tools of the trade. You'll often as magic damage is actually a incredibly versatile damage type, just like physical, because while physical has stuff like bleed and whatnot, and all that going for it, magic damage has the simple fact that not a whole lot of enemies hold resistances to magic damage. While I can't confirm or deny as to whether or not enemies have resistances, the different damage types kind of clue you in to the fact that there are likely some elemental resistances for certain enemies and mobs. So, with that in mind, if magic actually penetrates through some of those defenses, it's overall going to be, like I said, very versatile. So, with that in mind, let's go over the elements. There are, in total, there is fire, water, earth, hex, holy, air, and last but not least, there's pure magic, as I mentioned previously. So, what each of them do is, so first of all, fire, damage over time. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Because when you think of fire, you think of burn effects, and when you think of burn effects, you think of damage over time. So fire is going to be just overall, like I said with magic, it's going to be a very versatile tool for doing a lot of DPS and crazy ranged attacks. Although fire is much more close range in terms of overall range, because when you're using magic, you'll often find yourself using stuff like magic missiles and other stuff of that nature, and as a result, when you're using fire, by comparison, you'll have weapon arts like flamethrower, eruption, stuff like that. Which brings us to our next one, which is water. So water has an interesting focus of cleansing debuffs. So cleansing debuffs here. It's going to be what I mean by cleansing is that a lot of the water progression, in order to be able to unlock water as an elemental blade, if you've seen some other YouTube videos, you'll know how this goes. You have to find the Coral Cavern, and then while you're there, speak to an NPC that will teach you and grant you a rune of cleansing. This will give you a water boost, as well as give you the ability to cleanse your debuffs. This ends up leading into subclasses, but I'm going to cover subclasses a little bit later into the video. So, water's main focus is on cleansing, and it's a blend of that, and I should actually have the Trello open in the background, so give me a moment to do that. Because, truth be told, while most of this information is coming from hearsay based off of what I've seen in the game thus far. So, let's see here. So, a lot of water's main focus is going to be on removing debuffs, first of all, cleansing, like I said, and it's also going to focus on healing via splash. And, healing in AoE via stuff like splash and waterfall. Splash and waterfall are weapon arts that summon massive water orbs that come crashing down in front of you, dealing a massive wave of water damage. So with that in mind, water is probably one of your better picks for support and offensive support, because your main focus isn't going to be on healing, it's going to be on making sure that your opponents aren't suffering from debuffs, and also making sure that you are still alive by completely blasting enemies with high pressure water. Now, Earth's main focus is a whole lot of powerful hits. So when you think of powerful hits, what I mean by that is you'll be seeing a lot of criticals, powerful slamming strikes, and also a whole lot of additional physical damage scaling, which physical damage scaling ends up tying in with a lot of some of these, which end up going into hybrids, or as I like to call them, subclasses, which I'll describe later. So, Hex and Holy. These are two sides of the same coin. Hex is focusing on hindering your opponents, and Holy is focused on buffing your allies. So, and with these two being two sides of the same, coin, Hex damage is weak against Holy enemies, and vice versa. So, with that in mind, what exactly do they do? So, like I said, Hex focuses on debuffs. So, like for instance, it'll be lowering people's defense, their damage, and it'll overall just be ruining your opponent's day and allow you to completely debilitate them. On the contrary, however, we have Holy, which focuses on buffs, like regeneration, healing, and whatnot, and also the Cleric Guild, which is a completely separate thing, which I may cover that in another video as well. But something unique that they both have in common is summoning. So what exactly is summoning? So you may have come across something like a Swarm Rune, which summons a Bumbles to fight for you. So summoning is actually a subclass of Hex and Holy that they both mutually benefit from, and oftentimes you'll see a lot of Hex Summoner builds and not a whole lot of Holy Summoner builds, because there's only ever one weapon art that actually gives you for Holy that actually summons and that actually summons a pack of enemies for you to fight your enemies with, because a lot of summons are actually based off of enemies. So now let's move on to air. Air is the second to last element that I want to cover, and air, its main focus is, well, speed. Okay, you know, this joke's getting old. Okay, it's fast. It's fast as hell. You will see a whole lot of speed, because air magic, its main focus is based around a special buff called Tailwind. Tailwind, whenever you have it active, it grants you a speed boost. And Tailwind only ever generates whenever you use a wind magic weapon art. So, like, for instance, I'm pretty sure it's called Gale Assault, Storm Stomp, or you could use something like Lightning Cloak. But Lightning Cloak I won't cover for a little bit. And Pure Magic, well, we already covered it right here, so let's just say you already know. So, with that in mind, let's cover subclasses. This is the big thing that will be making or breaking your build, because while you can go for a pure element and zeroing in on these particular aspects like damage over time and damage in general, water with its cleansing and AoE, earth with its powerful hits, hex with its debuffs, holy with its buffs, air with its immense speed, pure magic with its DPS, range attacks, and all that. But subclasses is where all the spicy stuff is. So, what exactly is a subclass? Well, a subclass is anything that can be defined as different, like a split path. Basically, anything that can be defined as a split path from the pure version of a specific element, or a hybrid. So, let me actually give you a proper example with what I mean by that. So, for example, fire and holy create a sun subclass. Now, the sun subclass is only ever really capitalized on via something that you'll end up finding in Astral Presence, which is the Soul Warrior set. And the Soul Warrior set obviously makes it so that certain holy damage attacks will also grant burn and whatnot. So here's a couple subclasses that I've personally found, and I'll give you a rough idea as to what I know about them. So we got sand, which is a mix of earth and air. We have ice, which is a mix of, I think it's a mix of water and physical. I'm not 100% sure on that, because you'll also see scaling for water and air, which is very odd. So, but you'll also find there's also gravity, which I believe is primarily just earth. And there's also lightning, which is air and pure magic. So with that, so these are just a small list of examples. There are dozens of combinations. Like, for instance, there's even a balanced subclass where Hex and Holy both actually work together in tandem, which is only accessible via a Brilliant Present, which we'll cover how those all work later. But what this generally means is that there's a whole lot of mixing going on. You'll see hybridization between two separate damage types into one main source of damage. So a lot of times you'll find swords or sword handles that will spec out into scaling with two different things. These are usually a part of subclasses. So, like, for instance, When you go down the wind path, you'll get the air blade. Then you'll get then you'll have the choice between then you'll have the choice between the gale blade. I'm pretty sure. What's the gale blade? Let's see here. Let me double check. You'll have the choice between the wind blade. You'll start with the wind blade, and you'll have the choice between the gust blade and the storm razor. Gust blade or storm razor. So what? And gust blade means that you would be going pure air magic, while storm razor means that you would be specking into lightning. And lightning, obviously, it focuses on stuns and whatnot, and that's and that is, well, obviously its main focus. It's all about damage, stuns, and whatnot. Ice is more about freezing your opponents solid, slowing them down, etc. Sand, I haven't really tested. Gravity is all about like keeping your opponents in place and manipulating them, and there's plenty more, where that came from. But there's so much that a whole lot of it is going to come down to you having to figure it all out on your own, because that's kind of a lot of what this game is all about, which is preference. Preference is everything in this game, because if you don't have preference, then nothing is going to make sense. Absolutely nothing is going to make sense. Generally speaking, I personally suggest that whenever you make a build, you should focus on one particular subclass and focus on armors that boost that subclass, obviously. Because you're going to want some sort of synergy. Synergy is key to making sure that your build works. So, unlike in the original Voxelblade, there isn't really a massive sword tree to work off of, but there is an upgrade tree for something. There is an upgrade tree for blades themselves and their handles. So, with those two splits, you will be able to mix different damage types, which allows you to make use of these subclasses. Now, another thing of note is, that I want to briefly touch on is being able to use weapon arts from different damage classes and how they affect your weapon. So first of all, physical damage weapon arts have a very unique property wherein some of them, if they happen to use a sword, will actually deal the damage type of your weapon. So for instance, in one instance, my character has an air spear build, and I had that air spear use a cross slash for a brief time. And during that brief time, I noticed that it not only dealt air and magic damage, but it also functioned as it would normally, and didn't scale off of air and didn't scale off of physical whatsoever. So what that ends up meaning is that you can actually use very specific weapon arts in order to be able to create some more unique combos without having to channel stuff like flamethrowers, earthquakes, and whatnot. So a lot of this, like I said, a lot of this comes down to preference, but it's nice to kind of go over an overview of all of the damage types, the concept of subclasses, and how they all work. So with that in mind, if you want any more information, obviously you can go check out the Trello, and I'll be sure to link that in the description. So with that being said, this is Soups, and I just wanted to briefly cover this because I know a lot of people have been confused. This is kind of a bad video to really cover the whole thing, but this is the best I could do. So, with that being said, this is Soups, signing out. Thank you for watching.